Welcome to Innovation in Government, the future of records in the data lifecycle, presented by Carahsoft. I'm your host, Francis Rose. The National Archives and Records Administration says it sees, quote, encouraging progress toward fully electronic federal government record keeping. The acting director of NARA, William Fisher, says 2025 is a benchmark year as more agencies meet the mandate to go all digital records-wise. On this program, you'll learn about the risks and opportunities for records information management and how to leverage new technologies to take advantage of those opportunities. Alec Wyhs of Carahsoft, Nate Hughes of ARMA International, and Mike Radigan of Data Evolution are here to begin the conversation. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. Alec, I start with you. I keep hearing people thinking about records as data instead of as some records category that's off to the side. What's the implication of that for agencies that are involved in records management, data management?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're currently in the age of AI today, and data is pretty much the entire focus of having an effective AI. So I think moving forward, right, being able to tap into these records and have data sets, right, that are set up in a way to make that process more efficient is critical. I mean, the last 10 years or so, well, probably longer than that, actually, we've seen a focus heavily on big data analytics, right, data prep. And so in government, there's also a lot of funding that's been pointed in that direction. And so sort of getting rid of this artificial segmentation that exists in the minds of government employees is critical to moving this industry forward in a way that it's going to allow us to adapt and continue to grow. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty important that we find a way to get people to start thinking about records themselves, not as a separate conversation entirely, but as a subset or a sunsetting phase of the data management lifecycle.
What is driving that in the minds of the practitioners and in the minds of the people who use these records as data to make decisions in government?
Sure. I think it's the need to sort of stay on the forefront of the evolution of how we're managing and taking advantage of the data itself, right? So, historically, these records have been files and boxes in the basement of some office building, but that's not the case anymore, right? And it was the first, iteration of the Trump administration that introduced legislation and things like, M1218, where that was the first significant push for agencies to start adopting electronic records and converting those paper records into electronic formats. And so, we see it as an opportunity also for this administration to sort of check the box, right, on a successful win around an initiative that they originally brought to the table. So, we see it as a chance to kind of move the needle forward a little bit.
Nate, welcome. It's good to have you on the program. You've studied pretty extensively the governance piece of this. In a broader context around data, chief information officers are typically the tip of the spear. There's a CDO that usually reports to the CIO and so on. What's the implication for that structure and what the CIO is responsible for from a records management perspective as this merger of records and data kind of matures?
Sure. I mean, it's a top-down thing that has to be in place to really be successful at these programs. Alec was talking about the data and the highlights of that and how that integral piece is part of the bigger puzzle. And we look at it from ARMA International's perspective as a broader program, information governance as a whole, records, data, it all, funnels up. And the only way that those programs are ever successful is when they have a true top-down, all-in, approach to things, and getting the CXOs, CIOs, all those people in there and gathered and behind the projects, and the ways to get that data and the records in a way that it's actually useful and meaningful. It's the only way that we ever see success in that.
What are the ways that managing this type of data are different potentially from the other ways, the other types of data that agencies are managing? Or is it all the same as one starts to think about it all as data?
And I think that's the biggest thing out there. It's all kind of the same. You have to have the same approach to everything that you're doing. We highlight certain things that are hot button topics and records on this or information or data on that. Now that we're getting into actually implementing and looking to do something with that data and those records with AI, and actually not just saying we can access that and we have that information, but being able to tell a story with that and develop programs around that. It's more important than ever that we're treating everything that you have, whether it be data or records or paper and boxes, like Alec was saying. It's all the same. It needs to be treated under a strong program that really enforces all the frameworks and things that we've been talking about for years.
Mike, welcome. It's good to have you on the program. You're the cleanup hitter. I come to you next. Alec talked about artificial intelligence. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence in just about every context. Mm-hmm. What's the force multiplier that you think AI will provide in the area that we've been talking about on this program already?
It's a great question. I think what's happening in this is all the areas such as FOIA and privacy and governance and records used to be siloed within federal agencies. So if you had a program, you would silo some money and then implement that. The challenge is technology is outpacing all of that. So with AI, the idea is let's combine all of that at an enterprise level. And then we put it up into kind of an information warehouse, if you will, in the cloud. And it does a couple things. It allows the internal government employees to do their job better because now they have access and can find all the information using AI and all the data sets. But it also makes the constituent happier because now all those people have access to the information as they need it in the context in which they want to consume it and with all the governance and privacy that's required. 10 years ago, this wouldn't happen, but now we have the technology. So a small group within these federal agencies can manage this large amount of information.
Mike, I ask you, and then I want to get your input on this also, Nate and Alec, but that idea of all of this now becoming data, does that mean that the tagging and the collation of the data becomes more important as somebody's thinking about, okay, I respond to FOIA, that's my job. Maybe all of that stuff is, number one, not something that somebody's going to ask about in a FOIA, or number two, not something that is categorized for release through a FOIA. What does that do to the way that agencies have to think about how they tag, categorize, collate their data?
It's a great question because traditionally there was somebody that was doing that individual coding. Mm-hmm. So that the information would come in, they would look at it, they would code it, it would go back into a repository, and it might be paper initially, then electronic. Nowadays, all the technology vendors are handling that tagging. So as the information comes in, it can be tagged so it's in the right record class. And then if it's FOIA-able within the agency, then they can tag it for redaction. They can automate all of that. So where all the manual processes existed before, AI is helping to automate those. DoD has something called a one-click records management. And the idea is to let the technology do all the work, which leads to the knowledge professional, and then let them make not an arbitrary decision, but a decision on, is that a particular record? Should I move it here? Is it FOIA-able? It's helping information governance professionals, all the privacy, because oftentimes we'll find the level of training at an agency is completely different for the different groups. But if all the information is now governed together, then ARMA and others can do the training to help those people excel at their jobs, and again, do it faster and more efficient. And then the cloud and AI is going to help to be the force multiplier to really expand that.
And I would just say, to echo what you're saying, the importance is really an understanding around why you're doing what it is you're doing. Metadata and tagging and stuff isn't new. It's been around forever, but doing it in a way that is helpful, that is going to feed into these giant models that are then being used to spit out whatever it is you're trying to do. If you don't know what you're doing or don't understand why, even every bit of every function of every organization needs to understand what it means to get their information or their data or their records into a place where we can access it and use it in a way that is meaningful. But now more than ever, it's those concepts of why we're doing what we're doing that we need to make sure that are concrete before you move down a path where you've gone all this way with a bunch of junk, a bunch of trash that's not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. It's great to be able to access information, but if the information's bad to begin with, it's not going to get us any further progressed than what we've been in the past.
And Alec, it strikes me that makes this distinction or lack of a distinction, I guess, between records and other types of data more important. Absolutely. Because what I keep hearing from especially CIOs, but also chief data officers, is the data that I have to make decisions on, I have to be confident I should make decisions on. It sounds like that's what Nate's referring to there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Mike spoke to it earlier. We've had a bit of I guess, a issue, we could call it, or a problem where a lot of these agencies have had to rely on either a single point of failure, and by that I mean one records manager or a small office, right, who are going in and doing all the tagging and making sure the back end taxonomies are appropriately structured and that all the data is situated where it needs to be, right? But the other option is you have every single person in the entire organization trying to manage their own individual records, right? And that just introduces a lot of confusion, a lack of consistency. And so it becomes a lot harder to be able to manage this stuff. And so, I think coming in, and we talked a little bit about AI earlier, I think that's going to be a big piece of this in the not too far away future. It's in this industry, it's kind of unique in that AI is both a problem and a solution to that problem, in the sense that, for the first time, we're seeing something that can create, unique and creative content that needs to be tagged appropriately, needs to be, stored and filed away in the proper manner. But typically only humans have been able to create that kind of content. So we're looking at a bit of a tsunami coming at us of just rich data, and how do we manage that, right? How do we prepare ourselves for this big windfall? And funny enough, AI and, things like the one-click records or at a DoD, right? Those are the strategies that we're going to have to figure out how to get in front of and implement so that we can prepare ourselves for this big windfall.
Nate, what does the workforce need to be able to do capacity-wise or capability-wise as this all starts to change in the way that we've talked about it so far?
That's an interesting question. I mean, what we've tried to do from an organizational perspective is put together this council, for the public sector, at least the federal sector, this Federal Advisory Council, to hear what we need to be doing, and getting our business partners together, getting the practitioners together, getting the federal records officers together, and pairing that with our organization, with the frameworks and all of the education and training that we have, to figure out how to attack all the problems that we're seeing. They're coming out of this tsunami of everything coming at us with the data and getting it out the door with AI. So really, we need more people talking about this stuff is really what it is. And I think that's what we've started, in partnership with Carahsoft and this Federal Advisory Council, to be able to have those conversations, to start pushing that up the ladder, to make sure that we are all speaking with one voice around what we need to do and what needs to happen. But to that core is the conceptual frameworks. I keep saying that, but knowing what you're talking about and why you're doing it. We can't have everybody doing things individually, but we have to have an understanding at that level of why they're being asked to do the things that they're doing, to ensure that we're as future-proofed as possible.
Nate, Mike, Alec, it's great to have all of you here. When we come back, adding artificial intelligence to the record-keeping technology stack. You'll meet the Pentagon's records officer when innovation in government continues in a moment.